This podcast has mature language, not intended for underage viewers. Hello, this is Keenan with Street Cred Sports Training, and welcome to another episode of Time to Ball. Today is episode 12. Again, Happy New Year. Hope everybody's doing well. Me, things are starting to roll. Things are going good. New year, new mentality. Well, not really new mentality. Same mentality. Is just you're doing it. For me, I'm doing it in the new year. Well, there's some things that I wanted to discuss before I got into the training aspect of the podcast. The Damar Hamlin thing. You know, it was really hard to watch. Now, I was doing a training the night that it happened, and I finished training, and I was gonna get home and try to watch the rest of the game because I was anticipating a really good game. And as I was closing up, the last thing I always do is I always turn off the TV, right, before I leave. Obviously, you got to, because if you don't, you leave it on, and, that's just unnecessary electric use. So I'm watching, and I see that, somebody's down. They're huddled, around them. And when you see it, you get so used to seeing, like, if a person's injured and you think, okay, maybe he hurt his leg, or, maybe it was a spinal injury or something, concussion, they're taking care. Because I didn't see what actually happened. As I was getting ready to hit the off button, I heard one of the announcers, I want to say it was Joe Buck, said, they're administering CPR. And as they said that, my finger stopped, and I was like, CPR? I was like, oh, shit, somebody's having a heart attack. That was what I was saying to myself. So, I get home, I'm listening on the radio, get home and see what actually transpired. And, it was something hard to watch, when you consider where everybody was at that time. And, injuries happen. That was different. And, the one thing I've always said is sports is probably the one thing that can bring people together to where you don't have people, complaining about one another for whatever reason. Like, on your way to the game, you could be bunking your horn and looking at each other like you ready to fight. But then you get in the stadium and you're, all together. Then when you leave, you ready to fight sometimes, right, again. So I was like, I don't know if you've seen those memes where they have one dog on one side of the gate and another dog on the other side of the gate, and they're just going at each other through the gate like they're trying to kill each other. And then when they move to the part where there is no gate, they just wag their tail and walk on around their business. And then when they get back to the side of the gate where there's gate, then they start barking and going at it again. So, that's kind of my interpretation of how things are. And to see everybody, come together in that moment, nothing mattered. Now, there were some who made comments that, caught everybody off guard, and everybody was upset. And I've always looked at it and said, like, we're not going to agree with everything. There's even people that if you say, man, the sun is shining and it's blue, the sky is blue outside, there's somebody, if not just one, there's a lot of them, people out there that aren't going to agree with that. So I get that. I understand that. But, some people seem to want to make things about themselves. And then some people want to make things like, oh, well, this happened to this person. Well, but you can't forget about when this happened to that person. Man, I'm not saying nobody cares about that, but that didn't happen now. So, there was somebody on the news, they do the news where the TV station listens, and somebody was saying, well, hey, yeah, back in the 60s or 70s, this person died on the field having a heart attack in a football game as well. That wasn't actually true. He didn't die on the field. According to the story, he did pass out on the sideline at the end of the game, and he was rushed to the hospital where he died either en route or once he got there. Now that's still a tragic story, but sometimes it's like, yeah, but we're not talking about that. Let's just stay focused on what we're talking about, right? And then you have people who are like, why are we talking about this? And it's we need to be moving on. And it wasn't that big. I had somebody on Facebook who put that there wasn't a big deal, and he got killed for it. Now, I don't think he understood what had happened. I think he just saw something. But because the thing is I saw it as well. And I mean, I didn't see what happened. I saw that in that split second and kept moving. If I hadn't heard the word CPR, when I got home, I'd have been shocked because I thought, it was, I didn't see anything. It was limited information that I gathered from it. So, that person realized what had happened, the gravity of it, and they made it right. And to me, I never want to have an argument or a debate, with somebody who don't think they're wrong. There are people out there that don't think they're wrong at anything. And those are the people that you stay away from. I'll be the first to tell you if I do something, hey, that was on me, my bad. You know what? You gotta be an adult enough to admit when you're wrong, because you can't, pass that information on to younger people and expect them to think the same thing. So there are people out there who's saying stuff about the whole situation. It was one person. I'm not gonna name his name. I'm not a big fan of the person anyway because he falls into that. But that person made a comment. And people's like, "Oh, well, what was insensitive about it?" Like, man, come on. Would you say it wasn't insensitive in the presence of this man's family? Hell no. You wouldn't say it. So don't. Okay. All right, Mama. I'm sorry for this. Don't talk shit if you're not prepared to talk shit in front of that person. If you got something to say behind your computer, behind your your keyboard, as Chuck says on TNT, you're in the basement of your mom's house in your drawers typing, whatever. If you're not prepared to look that person in the face that's going through that shit, man, keep your fucking mouth shut. That's how I feel about it. If I'm gonna say something, I'm perfectly normal and okay with saying it to that person's face. That's kind of how I grew up. You have to stand on that. Now, if I'm wrong, then yeah, it'll be proven, and I should be man enough to apologize if I'm wrong. So there was a lot of stuff that was starting to come out that had nothing to do with anything, right? Even the fact that the man was getting a lot of support from other teams and stuff. And the toy drive that he had started in college, people supported that, and it was like, oh, why is he getting all this? I said, come on, man, why can't you just be happy for that situation? Something that happened that could have been a tragedy, has turned and something great has come out of it. There are going to be kids that are going to benefit because of this man's outpouring that was given to him because of something that happened. And the greatest thing about it was that, he's, as of like yesterday, he's doing better. He's got a long road ahead. I don't think he's going to be able to play ball anymore. That's just what I'm thinking. Obviously, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV. But, the word that I heard, and not to say that it's right or wrong, but when I actually saw it, later on, I kind of thought what it could have been, and it was just like remarkable that hasn't happened more often in this collision sport. So I know he's gonna want to play, but then you have to think about that person. You got to think about your health. You got to think about, sometimes as athletes, we want to just go. We want to play. We're going to play through the pain. We don't care about it. But then sometimes, what you have to start thinking about as athletes, when you're in that situation, not everybody, but when you're in that situation, is you got to think about your loved ones. You got to think about how your mom felt, your wife or your spouse, your kids. They went through it. So sometimes we can't be selfish. And I'm hoping that, yeah, I'm hoping that he could play again. I mean, it would be no greater story of satisfaction if he was able to play again. But you know, take your time. Take your time. Hell, you can end up being in the front office somewhere, working for the football team, to help and stuff, and maybe you can help pass some type of equipment usage that will aid football players, so that this type of situation never happens again. So it was great to see, that he's better. It was great to see that I would say 90 to 95% of the population shared the same thoughts and prayers and sentiments as one. And, the other 5 or 10%, man, it is what it is. So that's what I had to say. I'm glad I didn't do the show afterwards, because it affected me. It affected me to see his teammates on the field like that. That's how you knew it was a serious situation, because you saw the way his teammates were acting, not just on the Bills. They obviously they highlighted the Bills, but you saw it as well on the other sides. They look of despair, like, they're about to lose him. So I'm just so glad to see that young man is doing well. And before I move on, I know that everybody has a job. So I know the EMS, people, they have their own job, but man, you got to hug them. You got to hug those EMTs who come to your house and provide life-saving techniques to you to get you where you need to get. Because one thing that went through my mind after I found out the whole situation is, a lot of times when you have a player go down, they usually think maybe it's a concussion. I mean, you don't really know it. So, EMS people, they're coming onto the field, they're coming, and sometimes you see them kind of walking out or trotting out, right? Then you have to assess the situation. And if you're thinking one thing and not aware that it's something completely different, they could have lost him. Time was of the essence. So, those people, I mean, they're not, I don't want to say they're more amazing, because they're always amazing to me. Some of y'all might say, oh, they're not, that big of a deal. But wait until your ass is in the hospital and you don't want to go, and something happens and that person comes up and provides an opportunity to keep your butt alive. You'll probably have a different thought. Well, most of us would. It's like I say, there's always that one person that's going to be like, oh, they didn't do nothing. I was going to be okay, but, whatever. So, I think it was great that they were getting their just due, and everyone involved, from the driver to the person who brought whoever it is, man, you got to appreciate that they're there to kind of help us out. The second thing I wanted to talk about was I saw something about, I think it was about Luka. And, the question was, it was like, is Luka successful because he's a great player, or the system that he's running in? Because Luka's been on a tear. You hear that about Steph and Clay. You hear that about, who else is it? You hear that about quite a few players. They're good, but they're just good because of that system they're in. You hear it on the football side. That quarterback's good, but he's just good because he has a really good offensive coordinator, and the plays that they design and run, they help his strength. Well, everybody has strengths and everybody has weaknesses. Hell, Michael Jordan wasn't the best outside shooter, right? And when defenses, packed the paint, kind of kept him from shooting at times, he kind of struggled with his field goal percentage for a while. Then he figured it out, right? So my thing that baffles my mind is how people will change the narrative just to fit their argument, or, stuff like that. So, like, if you swap Luka and Steph, will Luka be just as effective in Golden State And will Steph be just as effective in the Mavericks? I would say yeah, because as a athlete, you're going to adapt. Now, I've always been one that I've always felt that Luka needs to do more off the ball. That's out because this is great and he's getting his, but they're kind of a hit and miss team in the sense of the way they play. If those guys aren't on from the 3-point line, it's going to be a long night. And if they get hot, they're going to blow somebody out or they're going to have a very good chance to win. So when it comes to those things, where when it comes, I would just like for him to be a little bit more harder to guard in the sense that, okay, sometimes he brings the ball up, he runs it, he finds who he wants on the pick and roll and he exploits it. And if somebody helps, then he gives it to that person to shoot. I would also like to see him just let them run the offense with him on the lower block or run the offense through him on the lower block. I've seen a little bit more of that. I would love to see him running like around screens, like what Clay does, constantly moving, running around, catch and shoot, coming out screens, catching it, going to the basket, 1 or 2 dribbles. To me, just to me, it's going to make him that much harder to guard. All right, now I'll use Steph as an example because with Steph, it's really hard to guard him. You can try to blitz him and deal with him on the screen and roll, but then he passes it, and then you're running, and then he's running, and you're trying to chase him, and he's running over screens, and you're yelling switch, and he's creating all of this attention. Now he doesn't get on the block. Obviously, he's a guard, so yeah, he's not really posting somebody up, but he provides so many different avenues for not just himself and teammates that it's hard, to guard. Now, when you're dominant, you're dominant. So, yeah, okay, I could do all those, but, you can't stop me with this. This is true. But you can really scheme to make it extremely hard by taking the ball out of that person's hands. So, my answer or my response to that whole thing is I would say it doesn't matter whether it's the player or the system. I mean, they both complement each other in a sense, but I think it's more the player because you can run every system you want, but if that player can't do what is needed to do, then that system doesn't matter. And in basketball, it's totally different because if you got a person that's just dominant, like Luka, if he's just dominant, you don't have to run an offense per se. They're running an offense. I don't want to make it sound like they're playing, rec league or playground ball. They're running an offense. They're deliberate in what they're doing. It might not look at it like it is much, but Luka's doing his thing. I mean, and there are other players. The Joker with Denver, he's doing his thing. He looks awkward. He doesn't look like he's just that good. And I'll say I had my reservations about him. I was like, man, I don't, but it was because I wasn't looking at him play. And sometimes we do that as people. We don't really see what happens, and we're like, yeah, man, nah, he ain't that good. Y'all just talking. But the Joker's that good. He is that good. I mean, so it's great to watch, guys coming in because once you see one guy, they leave, some guys are on the downside of career and it's like, man, I love this person, that person. Well, who's next? Who am I going to have to gravitate to? And it's always constant. So in my opinion, I think it's more the player than the system. I would put the player as number one. Yo, I like to give a shout out to my sponsors, Next Style Designs. Next Style Designs makes quality shirts or custom apparel for all occasions. Next Style Designs. Mind Inc. Mind Inc. offers a wide array of digital media. Mind Inc. asks, are you using your mind? Southwest Basketball Showcase Recruiting Service. The link between your coach and your dreams. Maracai Zero Down Solar. Call Greg Suber for your solar needs. PCS Plus is the carpet service for all your cleaning needs. All right. Okay. So let me get into my basketball ideology real fast. Okay. I was out watching games as usual. And I was also watching college as well as pro. And I was noticing how bad a lot of people are individually on a closeout. And what I try to do when I'm teaching my kids closeout, and I don't know if I've covered this before, but I just saw it and I was like, you know what? Let me talk about it. You have to have a plan when you close out. All right. And if you have a plan in place, obviously there are going to be different options or different things that can happen that can maybe alter or make you tweak that plan. But if you have a basic plan, it's going to help make you more successful. When you close out, you got to close out with your hand up. Even if you're not closing out to contest a shot, got to have your hand up. Because if your hand is down and that person wasn't looking to shoot, that person's probably going to shoot now because there's no hand up. The hand up at least makes the person think. It should. With some shooters. Some are like, yo, no, I got the green light. I'm letting this thing fly, right? Which goes to saying you need to have a plan. Here's why I say you need to have a plan. Because if you have a plan, let me try to give you. No, I'm not going to use an analogy for this one. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. When you have a plan, it can help you deal with an uncertain situation. So if your plan is, I'm going to close out with my hand up and I'm going to try to take away his or her jump shot, and I'm going to force them to drive, that tends to make it easy. You know what your goal is. Now, whether you execute it or not is up to you. But at least you know what you're doing. You're not walking into a situation blind. So you need to have a plan. So for those of you out there, players, hell, even coaches, ask your players. You know, obviously you should have a scheme. Now, on the highest levels of sports, I'm talking, pro, I'm talking college, I'm talking even high level high school. They go through this type of things, right, where they have planned. And I've mentioned it before, the two different ways two basic ways, defenses play in a man-to-man. It's either pushing them to the middle or pushing them to the side, for the basic part. I mean, I know it's more intricate than that, but that's kind of the way I try to serve it up to kind of give kids an idea and to help them be better prepared. But if you guys aren't if your kids don't know when they close out or stuff like that, what their plan is, they're going to continually fail. And you know what? I have kids in high school right now that when I asked this question to, and I asked them like, hey, what's your guys' defensive rotation and stuff? You playing defense when you're in a man-to-man, you're in help. Ball skips pass over to the wing, and that person catches it. What is your responsibility? What are you supposed to do? And they just say, oh, we just, I got to get there. I say, yeah, but then what? And then I get a look. I like if I could have a camera crew with me, every kid gives me that same look. That, well, what do you mean look? Like, what do you mean? What am I supposed to do? Now, maybe they're not paying attention. Maybe it's not communicated in the best way. And I've told the kids, you have to make sure you ask questions. It can't always be on the coach. Okay. Coaches will sometimes assume that you know what they're talking about. And, you can't, as a coach, you should communicate as if people don't understand sometimes. That's something that I've learned as a trainer. I can't assume that everybody's, that a kid is understanding, especially a kid that should understand. I can't assume that kid understands what I'm trying to communicate with them. So sometimes I tell them, look, I'm going to treat this as if you have no clue of what I'm talking about. Once I start showing you if you do, just let me know that you do. But I'd rather go that route and have you tell me that, you understand than for me to assume it. And then I have to waste time trying to correct what you don't know that you don't know. So I think the communication should be really good. Explaining to that kid, look, this is a closeout. When you close out, this is how we want you to close out. Once you close out, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm almost 100% certain that goes on because I know I know a lot of high school coaches, and that's, we discuss stuff. They tell me they listen to the podcast and stuff, and I talk to them, and I'm appreciative and everything. And thus far, none of them have said, "Hey, man, hey, what you said was fucked up. It was wrong. You wrong, man. You need to apologize for that, or whatever it is." But at the same time, I feel like I'm onto something. And the reason I feel like that is because the method I use in trying to help the kids, they all come back and say it helped a lot. The coaches noticed that, my defense has improved dramatically. My understanding of defense has improved dramatically. And I feel like that's the key. So if you have a kid if you're watching film, because I think it's important, if you're not watching film, if you're watching a game and you see that, they're not executing what they need to know, maybe go ask them. If you're a kid and you get taken out because of, something you tried to close out, and then, something happens, that kid shoots or that kid drives and kick out or whatever happens, and you as a coach take them out. If you get taken out for something, not in that minute because the game is going, but next day in practice, talk it over. Ask the coach, like, "Coach, hey, you took me out. What did I do wrong?" That's communication. And it's best if it's communicated in, because as the games get more intense, you have to know what you're doing. So I would just say have a plan if you're closing out on a shooter, because that was asked. Well, how do I close out on shooters? Well, if you know they're a shooter, you have to help, but you got to bust your ass to get there and cover space. With some shooters, it's probably just going to be almost impossible, because if they can shoot with range, they're going to be maybe a foot or two behind the three. You're going to be with 1 foot in the paint. So instead of you taking maybe 2 long steps, stride steps, and then chopping and getting out there, now you got to take 3 to 4. So that's a little bit abnormal for you if you're not used to doing it, which is why it's really hard. It's harder in the NBA, but you got to remember, guys in the NBA are like 6'7", 6'8", so those 2 steps can equate to a high school player's, 4 steps. So just have a plan, and I really think it should be on both ends. Players, if you don't know, then you should ask. Coaches, if you see that they're continuing to do the same thing, then, ask them, show them. I'm sure they want to learn, because nobody wants to be subbed out for mistakes. Okay, so in doing that, there is something that I've often done. I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's just the way I've articulated it when it comes to defense. Because when I started telling, kids about, playing defense, and I asked them, I was like, well, what are the 3 ways you use to play defense? And again, I'll get that look. And I do understand that sometimes they know what you're talking about once you explain it, because everybody's terminology is different. The way they communicate and stuff is different with kids. So there are times when kids, oh yeah, okay, you're talking about this, right? But 75% of the time when I ask this question, the kids don't really, even though I'm articulating it correctly, they didn't understand it that way. And I've had them say, you know what? It helps. Okay. The 3 ways that I teach defense, and it could be 4. I mean, it could be 5, it could be 6, depending on you. But to me, just in a basic sense, because I can't teach something advanced techniques to a kid who is a beginner. I have to make sure that they all understand. So the 3 ways I teach are sight, because you're using your eyes. You have to see what's happening, right? Ball, man, what else is going on in the game? Obviously, sound. Because as you're playing defense, you should be communicating with each other. Backside help should be telling you if there's a screen. Your teammates should be telling you that we're going to switch, or here comes a pick, get through. I got your help. My rebound. All of those different things. There are lots more. I'm just mentioning a few. Okay, so we got sight, which is important because if you can't see or if you're not looking, you're going to get burnt. Then we got sound. If you're not listening or speaking, both, you're going to get burnt. The last one is touch. Now, the reason I say touch is when I'm teaching in a basic, like deny, right? It's a basic deny, meaning when I teach the basic deny, I'm not teaching where they're in the middle, in between the top person and the person they're guarding, right? Because as you get to high school, it changes. They don't want you there on hugging that man. They want you in a position, right? So when I'm teaching basic defense, when they're just learning, I teach them if you're going to be in the deny, you use your, if you're on the top, let's see, top left 3-point wing. Gosh, it took me a while to actually say it. On the top left wing, if you're on defense, it's top left wing, and you're in the deny, you're using your right hand to deny the pass. You have your left elbow, touching, kind of pushed against the defender, offensive player. Sometimes they'll slap it. They don't want you touching them, right? And it's because it's really, some kids is, man, I don't want you touching me. But for the most part is, well, I don't want you to have that advantage. I don't want you to know what's going to happen, right? So if you're not touching them and your eyes are where they're supposed to be, you can kind of lose sight if you do what coaches call ball watching, where you start to look at the ball and you're not playing and looking at your hand. I've told kids, if you're in a deny, especially now when you're more advanced and you're not on the person, you're in between two people, look, and you're in deny, if you look at the front of your outside hand, which would be your deny hand, if you just stare at your hand, your peripheral vision can take charge and you can see to the sides of you. So you don't have to look over and stuff like that. Now, that's just a technique I teach. So I would never, say, hey, this is the best way to teach it. I just teach it where I feel like I'm trying to help them have the biggest advantage. Well, in any case, if their arm is not touching and that person cuts back door because your eyes are turned towards the ball, then that person cuts back door, you never know where he is. If you're guarding on that person and you're trying to keep this person from coming over the screen, you got your hands on them. You're leaning on them or something. So if you're not touching that person, you won't know where that person is going or where that person moved to. So you have to use touch when you're playing defense. That's just natural. On offense, if you're trying to get over full screen, you're going to use touch to try to, move the defender where you need them to be so you can get open. So for me, sight, sound, and touch are the three biggest, to me, the three biggest keys on defense. If y'all have a different view, if you're looking at it different, or if there's something that I missed, please, communicate with me. Email me. No, don't email me. Drop me a comment on this post, because then you can start, there might be other ways. And this, to me, doesn't need to be about, oh, well, I'm more right than you are. You're wrong, I'm right. No, there could be a kid somewhere that doesn't know and understand. And for that kid to listen, find this podcast and listen to it and learn something, we've just helped somebody. That kid could be in Anchorage, Alaska. I have no idea why Anchorage, Alaska just popped in my head. It's not a place that I'm going to visit. I know it's beautiful. I've heard lots about it, but it's cold. I don't like dealing with anything under 70 degrees. So I'm definitely not going to Anchorage, Alaska. I actually had somebody, I might have told this story, but I'm going to tell it again. I had a person that was telling me that they were stationed, and I think it was Anchorage, Alaska. It was somewhere in Alaska. I know that much. I want to say it was Anchorage. And they said, yeah, well, it gets like, sometimes I think they said it gets like 35 below or 45 below. And when it gets that cold, you get these alerts because, you can't be outside, the air is so cold it could damage your lungs and stuff. And I'm thinking, why the hell would y'all be in a place where it gets like first of all, what's the difference between 20 below and 30 below? Right? I know it's 10 more degrees, but to me there is no difference. Anything under 50 degrees to me feels like it's 40 below zero. That's just me. I don't like the cold. So yeah, but back to what I was saying. If if it helps somebody, then it's all the more to it. It's great because that's what we should be doing, is producing really good players. So I'm gonna end, but let me if you want to tune in to my Patreon version, this is some of the bonus content I'm gonna talk about. One thing is gonna be, why are European players getting drafted more? That was a discussion, and it made me look a little bit more into it. Basketball ideology will be, I'll cover the hesitation moves, and then I'll cover how to manipulate the basketball. That's something that some people don't understand, when the art of dribbling. A story about a parent, who thanked me for taking their kids to a college workout. I also got a story about me getting bullied when I was in middle school first day, and my what is it I call it, the things I heard when I was growing up but didn't understand what it meant. So I would hope that you guys would join me for that. That is all today. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will end it as I always do. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. I'm out.